everyone, and let's continue our first ECG lecture of the Easy ECG series. And as Tom Clancy said, life is about learning. When you stop learning, you die. So in the first three lectures, we talk about the electrocardiogram, the electrophysiology, the deflections, and today let's continue with the intervals and the segments. So let's start with the intervals. During analysis of an ECG graph, the distances between certain waves are relevant in order to establish a temporal relationship between sequential events during a cardiac cycle. Since the distance between waves is expressed on a time axis, these distances are termed as ECG intervals. We have 5 intervals in the ECG. First, we have the PR interval, which starts from the beginning of the P wave to the beginning of the Q wave. Then we have the ST interval, which starts from the end of the S wave to the end of the T wave. Then we have the TP interval, which starts from the end of the T wave and to the beginning of the P wave. And the QT interval, which starts from the beginning of the Q wave to the end of the T wave. And finally, we have the RR interval, which starts from the R wave to the next R wave on the next cardiac cycle. The two intervals that are clinically important are the PR interval and the QT interval. So let's talk about the PR interval. The PR interval is measured from the onset of the P wave to the beginning of the QRS complex. Although the term PR interval is in vogue, actually PQ interval would be more appropriate. Note that the duration of the P wave is included in the measurement. We know that the P wave represents atrial depolarization, while the QRS complex represents ventricular depolarization. Therefore, it is easy to comprehend that the PR interval is an expression of atrioventricular conduction time. This includes the time for atrial depolarization, conduction delay in the AV node, and the time required for the impulse to traverse the ventricular conducting system before ventricular depolarization ensues. Then we have the QT interval. The QT interval is measured from the onset of the Q wave to the end of the T wave. If it is measured to the end of the U wave, it's termed QU interval. Note that the duration of the QRS complex, the length of the ST segment, and the duration of the T wave are included in the measurement. We know that the QRS complex represents ventricular depolarization, while the T wave represents ventricular repolarization. Therefore, it is easy to comprehend that the QT interval is an expression of the total duration of ventricular systole. Since the U wave represents Purkinje system repolarization, the QU interval, in addition, takes into account the time taken from the ventricular Purkinje system to repolarize. So we have finished the intervals, and let's jump to the segments and to the end of this lecture. The magnitude and direction of an ECG deflection is expressed in relation to a baseline, which is referred to as the isoelectric line. The main isoelectric line is the period of electrical inactivity that intervenes between successive cardiac cycles, during which no deflections are observed. It lies between the termination of the T wave or U wave if seen of one cardiac cycle and onset of the P wave of the next cardiac cycle. And this segment is called TP or UP segment. However, two other segments of the isoelectric line that occurs between the waves of a single cardiac cycle are clinically important. First one is the PR segment and the second is the ST segment. The PR segment is that portion of the isoelectric line which intervenes between the termination of the P wave and the onset of the QRS complex. It represents conducting delay in the atrioventricular node. Note carefully that the length of the PR segment doesn't include the width of the P wave, while the duration of the PR interval does include the P wave width. Second, we have the ST segment. The ST segment is that portion of the isoelectric line which intervenes between the termination of the S wave and the onset of the T wave. It represents the plateau phase of the ventricular repolarization, the point at which the QRS complex ends and the ST segment begins is termed the junction point or the G point. So we have finished the first lecture of the Easy ECG series, and let's jump to the question of this lecture. Why ECG waves are termed as PQRST and not ABCDE waves? Thanks for watching. I will be more than grateful if you press the like, subscribe button and share this video with your colleagues. If you have any suggestions to improve my channel, leave a comment and let me know please. See the description below for the newest updates and for more infos. Also, don't forget to follow us in other social media sites. Keep your narcotic dose and good luck.